Thursday, the 26th day of September 2024, and some 72 days more until the December 7 general elections. Welcome to your most authoritative morning show, Good Morning Africa. This is the newspaper review segment where we get to bring you thrilling, exciting, insightful, and captivating conversations here on the show. My name is ALORMASOR. I am your driver for this segment of the show, and this is something I do with so much glee, and I'm very happy and excited that you have joined us this morning, this day, to listen to our panelists and the things that they have to say about the many issues confronting this country. My guests would be joining me shortly. I have Hamza Suhini from the National Democratic Congress and Ristaniama Amafio, who is a blue economist and the vice president of NAFAG, the National Fisheries Association of Ghana. The PNC has been in the news for so many reasons. We know for a fact that their flag bearer, Bernard Amba Tyler Mona, has been disqualified as far as the upcoming elections is concerned. He has resorted to the courts to seek redress, but the General Secretary of the party, Audu Ishak, will be joining the panel this morning, and so that conversation will be up, and I'll be more than glad to receive your thoughts, your submissions as well. They are so vital to this show. Not only our panelists get the opportunity to express their views on the many issues plaguing this country, you also do get the opportunity to share your thoughts with us, and I'll be more than glad, I'll be more than grateful to hear from you. Right. There are a number of issues that we have tabled for this morning's conversation. We picked the African story from today's edition of the Daily Graphic newspaper. There are concerns about Sudan's security issue, and Africa's regional body, the African Union, they are concerned over Sudan's deteriorating security. That's the story. It has been captured on the front page, page 5, not on the front page, but page 5 of today's edition of the Daily Graphic newspaper. Now, away from that, the ECG boss has also tendered in his resignation for personal reasons. A lot of people have been asking questions, have been raising eyebrows as to the reasons for which he may have decided to discontinue in his position as the managing director of the electricity company of Ghana. So that's going to be our second topic for conversation. Like I earlier told you, Bernard Amba Tyler Mona's face will not appear on the ballot paper if the current position of the Electoral Commission is anything to go by. Then it means that his face won't appear on the ballot paper come December 7. But this is something he's doing everything to overturn. There's been a lawsuit. This has been taken to court, and so the courts would be looking at this to see if Bernard is right that he's eligible to contest as flag bearer of the People's National Convention, or the EC are right by saying that there were some provisions that he couldn't meet per the demands of the Electoral Commission of Ghana, and so hence his disqualification. And so that's going to be the third topic for conversation. Like I earlier told you, Audu Ishak of the People's National Convention will be joining me to have that thorough conversation. Finally, we shall be going to the camp of the Butterfly, the Movement for Change. Their vice presidential candidate, Kwame Osudanso Elijah, is in the Oti region. His campaign trail is there, and he's been interacting with the people. He partly comes from that side, not even partly. His father is actually from the Oti region, so he's an indigene of Oti. And so when he was made running mate, he deemed it fit to first visit Oti and then talk to his people, let them know his current position, and of course try to convince them to vote for the MFC come December 7, 2024. So these are the issues that we have tabled for today's conversation. I'll urge you to be a part of it. The text line has been displayed on the screens: 0559919802, 0559 919-802. So that is the line to send your messages. Also WhatsApp, you can save that number and then send us a WhatsApp. We should be streaming live on Facebook at facebook.com/Pan-African Television. You can join us there. Also on youtube.com/Pan-African Television, and I'll be more than glad to hear from you. Right, I've been joined by Hamza Suhini of the National Democratic Congress is here. He was actually supposed to be here yesterday, but due to some reasons. Yesterday, because of the torrential rains, it greatly affected the morning show. Eventually had 2 guests, but then the show went on regardless. And today I'm going to be having a full house. I'm very hopeful of that. Audu Ishak just walked in, and so very soon, but he would be joining us. But let me extend warm felicitations to my big brother Hamza Suhini, who just joined us. It's been a while we had him on the show. He was away for some time. He's here. Hamza, good morning.
Good morning, Bless.
I trust you're fine.
Yeah, well,
It's been a while.
It's been a while. I had to go on some assignments outside the country, so I just got back not long ago.
Good to have you back.
Thank you. Glad to be back too.
Yeah. Right. So, as I earlier stated, Audu Ishak will be joining us. He's the General Secretary of the People's National Convention, and so I intentionally added that topic of Bernard Mona, his disqualification, and the steps being taken by the People's National Convention to seek redress from the court. As to whether or not that request will be granted, I do not know. But of course, Audu Ishak is here, and then he will throw more light on it later on when we visit that topic. Ishak, good morning.
Good morning, Blessed.
We haven't met since you became General Secretary of the PNC.
Well, as you are aware, I became General Secretary and immediately had to step into these troubles of the unfortunate decision by the Electoral Commission to disqualify the party. So it's not really a time for us to be engaging in media activities. We have been at the party level trying to put our acts in order so that we can fight this injustice. So you can understand why I have not been around. Otherwise, Pan-African has always been my home.
I do very much understand. Yes. I do very much understand. We'll get into the details of that as to how it is going and whether there is any glimmer of hope as to whether or not that decision could be overturned.
Our leader is a very optimistic person. Bernard Mona, he doesn't give up. And so he carries all of us along. I can assure you that there is hope and there will be light at the end of the tunnel. It's not going to be easy, but we are ready to fight it.
Right. There's been precedent. In 2016, a similar thing occurred with the PPP, and they resorted to the court, and then, of course, that decision of the Electoral Commission then was overturned, and so it could happen. It could happen again. But let's get into our first topic for conversation, our African story. As typical of Pan-African Television, we are the only station in Ghana that does that. We dedicate our first topic to another country, another African country other than Ghana. And so today we are focusing on Sudan. Sudan is our focus, but not only our focus, it has also been the focus of the African Union. They are not happy about the security situation, in as much as we may have our personal sentiments as to the actions and inactions of the AU, especially when it comes to issues like these, and how they are I wouldn't want to say lackadaisical attitude, but they've not been as proactive as we expect them to be, and these issues of insecurity across the continent continues to fester. Let me read the story. African Union Commission Chairperson Musa Faki Mahamat on Tuesday expressed concern over the deteriorating security and humanitarian situation in Sudan. The chairperson of the 55-member organization, in a statement issued on Tuesday, expressed grave concern regarding the security and humanitarian situation in the conflict-affected Sudan, with particular emphasis on the situation in El Fasher and Darfur. Condemning the recent escalation of the crisis and the spread of violence, Faki called for an immediate cessation of the fighting across Sudan. He further reiterated the AU's conviction that there can be no military solution to the crisis in Sudan. He said the ongoing unjustified fighting only prolongs the suffering of all Sudanese people and the devastation of the country after decades of conflict and forced displacement. Sudan has been embroiled in a deadly conflict between the Sudanese armed forces and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, that is the RSF, since mid-April 2023. How many months now? It's been more than a year, about a year and 6 months, if my calculation is correct. Faki urged the two warring parties and the allies to immediately and unconditionally embrace a permanent and comprehensive ceasefire. He said a permanent and comprehensive ceasefire would pave the way for an inclusive all Sudanese political dialogue to address the deep-rooted causes of the conflict and reset Sudan towards constitutional democratic order and stability. So these are the issues in Sudan. We've discussed this topic here time and again ever since the fighting broke between the two warring parties in April last year. Several thousands of people have been displaced in Sudan as a result. Several thousands of people have died as a result of the actions of these two warring parties. There is hunger in Sudan, and I think a few months ago we even heard that people have had to rely on peanut shells. They have to eat peanut shells in order to survive. So it's a difficult situation, and I mean we keep on talking about the influence of the African Union, especially in matters of these sorts, but it appears that their hands are entirely removed. They do not have so much say. They only come in and talk, but as to whether or not the things they say carry weight and are followed by these parties, it's a conversation for another day. But I'm starting the conversation with you, Mr. Hamza Suhini. Your general thoughts on happenings in Sudan and the position of the African Union, and if there's something they can do to, reverse the trend.
Good morning once again. Blessed to you, and of course our cherished viewers out there, and my colleague panelists on the show. I always resist the temptation to start my submissions on a note of pessimism. But unfortunately, I am at a stage where I have to do that this morning because of the question you asked as to the role of the African Union in terms of brokering peace and more or less protecting lives in the region. I hate to admit that it is going to be a difficult task for the African Union, not simply because of the nature of the conflict in Sudan, but largely because of the inherent inefficiencies of the African Union itself. And if you look at history, since its formation, it has always struggled, as far as the African continent is concerned, to broker peace, or in most cases to prevent peace. It mostly takes our international partners who come on board to ensure that we secure peace in most parts of Africa. So it begs the question, the relevance of the African Union. Nonetheless, I will not sit here, especially as a student of political science, and postulate that in fact the African Union has no relevance. I think what has always been the problem with our union is the nature of our structures. There is a need for the African leadership to try as much as possible to put behind the scenes, or to put on the back burner, their selfish interests as leaders of the African continent. So the alliances we build in Africa, either from the west or east, at the end of the day, even at discussions, and if you look at also our historical antecedents in terms of our relationship with our colonial masters, it all has some kind of effect on the functioning of the African Union. So for me, I think the time has come for us to take a very critical look of the African Union itself and ask ourselves those thorny questions as to whether indeed the current stature of the Union is what we need in terms of our collective objective to ensure that we deliver a secured union, continent. And I think that we have not been engaging in this discussion. That is why almost all the time we end up asking ourselves questions as to whether the African Union can actually be instrumental in ensuring peace in our continent. So the first point we need to do is to take a critical look at the African Union and ensure that we build it to go beyond the partisan or sectional interest that mostly clouds its decision-making processes. So if you look at the United Nations, for instance, undoubtedly those interests also persist. But some way, somehow, they are able to contain or manage it. And where there's the need for them to take critical decisions, they do so. So I am not hopeful. I am only hoping that our international players, either the United Nations, the World Bank, and the IMF, because these are all institutions that play a critical role as far as the economy of Sudan and also South Sudan is concerned. So let us see how we can appeal to them to once again come together to foster peace in Sudan. So for me, that is one workable path we need to take. Unfortunately, I do not have confidence in the African Union, considering its current setup. But to the critical issue of the crisis, Bless, we do not need any security expert or analyst to tell us the implications of such a war or conflict on the economic livelihoods of the people of Sudan. We do not need it. We all knew that it was going to come to this stage. In fact, even before the escalation of the conflict, the economic situation in the country was already dire. The first question we should be asking ourselves is, how did these two men even end up being at the top of the Sudan politics? It was largely as a result of the people's revulsion against the economic mess that was created by previous governments and even the Bashar government at the time. And so, let us not mince words. The truth is that the economic situation of Sudan was already dire before the two people came to the top. And if you remember, it was as a result of the people's own coalition and massing up against economic incompetence and needless or reckless allocation of meager resources of the Sudanese people in the budget, in the last budget of al-Bashar, that sought to give so much of their meager resources to the armed forces and the RSF, that led to that mass protest against his government, and which led to his eventual removal from the presidency. And that was how these two guys came. So we knew the economic situation of Sudan already. So we knew that any escalation of conflict was going to aggravate the situation. And so that is what we are simply experiencing. But unfortunately, if you had a working regional body, we would have demanded that these two groups, or these two leaders, both, what's the name? Is it Burhan and that of Himati, should have been swept off the political scene. And if they refused to resign, the African Union would have been bold, or should have been bold enough to enter Sudan to ensure that these guys are taken off that political radar. But because we do not have the resources and the commitment as a bloc, the only avenues available to us seem to be what we are using, calling for peace without necessarily backing that with any action. So it's unfortunate. But then again, you cannot make an analysis of the Sudan situation without once again drawing from the Kenyan example. And that gives you a brighter picture of what is happening within Africa. Because if you look at the Kenyan example, it's similar to what is happening, just that the difference is that Kenya did not escalate, because it was also the people rose up against the budgetary allocations and introduction of taxes in the budget of the president and government. That nearly led to a situation that would have been terrible for the entire African continent. But that situation in Kenya and Sudan, unfortunately, if you look at the root causes, it is not different from what is happening in our own country. And that is why those of us who are fortunate enough to appear either on radio discussions and TV discussions, we always caution this government to be careful, especially in terms of its response to dissent as far as policies are concerned. Bless, today, what is on our faces as a country, as a republic, has to do with the terrible decision of the government to more or less refuse to grant, through the judiciary, to refuse to grant bail to innocent protesters who were protesting largely because they felt that our economic situation and, most importantly, our water bodies were under threat as a result of illegal mining. If you go on all our social media platforms, people are massing up, people are organizing, young people of this country are organizing. We may not know where that is going to lead us, especially so when the economic situation of this country is already dire. Because since the inception of the Fourth Republic, we've not been subjected to such level of poor economic management and unbridled corruption like we have been under this government. And so we are sitting on a time bomb. And unfortunately, the government in its arrogant posture is doing everything to ensure that this country actually detonates. And that it should be a source of worry to every well-meaning Ghanaian. Because the only way to prevent a Kenyan or Sudanese situation is for us to attempt at this critical moment to ensure that we more or less bring down the temperature in the country. But the government is callously, recklessly, in the midst of economic hardship, is escalating the situation in the country. And that would be dire for all of us. And I'm going to end on that note, Bless, and caution that what is happening in Sudan must be a wake-up call to even the Ghanaian government and the Ghanaian people. And whatever we need to do in the collective to ensure that we bring down the temperature, we do so. Because if you look at every sector of our economy, of our country today, it is simply waiting to explode. Either from the economic angle or issues of freedom of expression, like we saw in the arrest of citizens for simply demonstrating against the government in regards to the way it is handling illegal mining, or even the shameful and troubling conduct of the Electoral Commission that is mandated under our 1992 Constitution to once again organize one of the most difficult elections come 7 December 2022, and the conduct of the Electoral Commission. And we saw the numbers that the NDC threw out on the streets in all the 16 regions of this country. Any person who is a watcher of the political space of this country must be worried about the conduct of the Electoral Commission and the signals the political parties are also sending, and the potential effect of that as far as 7th December is concerned. So yes, it is a collective responsibility, and we must do all to ensure that we prevent a Sudanese situation. So you cannot engage in a Sudanese discussion without looking at how it is inextricably linked to Ghana and most parts of Africa. And so for me, that is my concern today. But the Sudanese people must also begin to take the leadership of the country into their hands. If they had the power to take out Bashir, I think that they still have that power to take out Burhan and Hemeti. And they must once again organize to ensure that these characters are taken out of their political space.
Right. Ishaq. Blessed.
Well, permit me to use this opportunity to show some appreciation to some of the people who contributed to my being General Secretary. Like you indicated, today is my first appearance on TV since we had our National Congress. And you know that, this could not have been possible without the support of a lot of people, from the media to people within my party, people outside of the party, and so many other people. sit and recount. But like I indicated, I just want to say thank you to everybody who in one way or the other contributed to my success and my election as the General Secretary of the PNC. I'm hugely grateful. I simply cannot single out any one particular person because a lot of people supported. We got a lot of encouraging messages. We got a lot of encouragement from people you least expected that they had any interest in your political progress and all of that. So I simply want to say that I salute to all of them. Thank you. Sudan and the AU. Bless, it remains a fact that at the heart of international cooperation or an international organization like the AU is the fact that it must strive to preserve peace and to maintain a secure environment for its members. To that extent, the AU, as we know it now, has an onerous task as far as issues like what is happening in Sudan are concerned. And it's worrying that the AU over the years appears to be unable to bite, and the reason for which my brother Hamza had to take us through some of the inefficiencies that the AU has exhibited over the years. And that cannot be far from the truth. We all know, and we must admit rightly so, that the AU in the past, in similar situations, has not been able to prove to us that it has what it takes to live up to its mandate of bringing about peace and security on the continent. The reason for which we have seen one conflict or war after another having to travel for a number of years, for a protracted number of years and for ages. And in the process, we all know the ramifications of most of these conflicts. And we are not here to go into those ramifications because they are out there for the average mind to contend with and to understand. But we are looking at what the AU can do, and I can tell you that I think that the AU ought to up its game. The AU ought to employ every available strategy that is at their disposal to ensure that they are able to arrest this particular conflict going on in Sudan. And that means that whoever is involved, through whatever means, the AU must ensure that they bring them to order so that innocent lives are not lost, so that people's livelihoods are not destroyed, so that people do not go through the effects of famine and hunger, like you indicated in your intro. How possible is it that in the 21st century you have people having to eat granite shells just so that they can survive because they are hungry? These are not things that should be happening. And it requires that the AU calls for some form of help. The AU calls for some kind of alliance with anybody at all who has what it takes to be able to support in the interest of the people of Sudan and not in the interest of those who are hungry and running helter-skelter everywhere looking for power. These people who are the reasons for the war are just simply looking for power. And they put these innocent Sudanese in the firing line. And these are the people who suffer the most in terms of the effects of these conflicts and all of that. So I think that we need to be putting pressure on the AU to up its game, to call for the necessary alliances, to look out for the best possible strategies and ways by which they could bring this conflict to an end so that we could save lives in the poor country of Sudan.
Right, thank you very much, Alusha. Let me say a hearty good morning to Mr. Niyama Mafio. He is the Vice President of the National Fisheries Association of Ghana, a blue economist for that matter. Mr. Rista, good morning.
I don't like this long fish. I'm just a fisherman. Good morning.
I trust you are fine.
Fine.
Right.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you, bro.
It's been a while.
You're looking old. I couldn't recognize you.
Try to leave the beard.
Yes. Anytime I wanted to eat proper kenke, we used to go to him in Tema to eat the kenke. Now, presidential candidate Bernard Mona. That's his bosom friend.
I see.
So he's my big brother.
He's a brother. Your brother is a brother. He's not a friend. Anyway.
Happenings in Sudan.
Good morning.
Good morning. Not bad, though. We survived.
You see, sometimes I don't want to talk about these failures in Africa because it looks like we keep saying the same thing. But you see, AU as a bloc in itself is a failure because we couldn't even build our own headquarters. It took China to build our headquarters for us. Not only did they build our headquarters, they also bagged it. And it took us a lot more years to even know that the headquarters they built for us had been bagged. So that is the leadership we are dealing with. The AU was set up for a purpose, and one of it is to be able to have some form of economic and political emancipation from the West. And those who wanted to have AU properly established were stoned and killed. Our own Usajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah was one of those who suffered that kind of... We had people say, when we were growing up at home, he took all the money from Ghana and used it to fight for African liberation. And it was one of the things they used against Usajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, that he was using Ghana's money to fight for Africa's liberation. The ideas that he had, people like Patrick Lumumba and many others, Emperor Selassie and all those pioneers of the AU agenda, what they were planning then is what the EU is practicing today. It's what has made EU a single block. That when I take a Schengen visa, I'm able to move through the European countries that uses the Schengen visa. And at no point would anybody ask me, how are you entering? Even if nobody even check whether you have a visa or anything. You just move. Because once you enter one Schengen country, and what it means that it facilitates trades. It makes life easier for everybody. When you get into United States of America, it's about 51 different states that have come together. Once you enter US, you move everywhere in the US. You move goods, you move human beings, you move everything moves. And it is one simple economic block. With one currency, so trade becomes easier. We've been trying for God knows how long to have the West African monetary policy and have a single currency, and we've not been able to do it. We cannot even have meet a converging criteria that will allow us to have a single currency for us to trade. So trading between Ghana and Togo is a challenge. Because when I have to go to Togo to buy something, I need to change CFA. If I have to go to Nigeria, I need to get Naira. So we cannot even trade among ourselves. So you see, if you want to rely on the AU to do anything, it becomes a challenge. I'm not glorifying coup, but when Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali decided to take their destiny into their own hands, I'm sure they are doing better than the whole of West Africa is doing. Our leadership on the continent are failing us. And interestingly, we don't seem to see it. We seem to have lost our sovereignty. The neocolonialism that Sajid Dr. Kwame Nkrumah was talking about, that it will come in other forms, had come in those forms, and we've embraced them so well that even our intelligentsia still believe that they can't do anything for themselves unless there's somebody who is dictating to them as to how they should do it. So the AU in itself, you can have the whole African leaders running to meet with, if the French president today calls, I want to meet all African leaders, you see, all of them, some will go by chartered flight when their people are still hungry, just to go and meet with the French president for a handout. Some will just go because they want to have photo opportunity with the French president. Meanwhile, the same French president was classmate to some of their children. Yet they will want to go and have photo opportunity with him. That is the level to which we have reduced Africa. So Sudan's issue is about people who also want to join the club of people who sometimes may want to have photo opportunities with global leaders. And it's not really about developing Sudan. So you see, they don't really care what the people are going through. Because they don't care if the whole of Sudanese people will die for them to be named president. So they will join the club and get photo opportunities. Not because they want to develop Sudan. So the people's life do not matter. Can you imagine when an accident happened in US, UK, and a life is lost, the effort they put in to investigate what caused that life to be lost, and what they have to do to make sure that no other life is lost that way, the people who take responsibility for any mistake that may have happened. And then people pick guns and kill their own people and feel it's all right. Children walk on empty stomach for days. There was one picture that was put on, I think Facebook, I saw it some time ago, and I heard that picture even won an award, where there was a vulture waiting for a child who was so hungry to die.
Yes. And the child actually died, and the photographer who took that picture actually won an award for it.
Yeah.
But later committed suicide because he got a lot of bashing for not helping
That child.
at that point in time. He rather took a picture. He committed suicide.
Yep, you get it. But that's the mentality we have as a people. And it happens. You see accident happening on the road, and all you see people do is to pick their phones and take pictures. And even sometimes the persons who are supposed to have the responsibility, like ambulance service and others, they come there, and the first thing they want to do is to take picture of the accident rather than help the people. And that's the kind of leadership. So you see, our lives reflect in the leadership we have. So the people in Sudan are exhibiting the same thing, that, oh, let the people die, we'll make the news, and the whole world will know that we are fighting, so they will come in to help us. What shows that they cannot help themselves? We have a huge challenge. And you see, at some point you realize that the AU itself is losing that moral authority to get into some of these situations and help, because what is the moral grounding on which you are standing to even call people to come and sit at the table and talk peace? So yeah, we have a situation on our hand, but unfortunately the AU is becoming the wrong forum to get these matters addressed. The AU need to purge itself. African leaders need to show respect to their own people. Just look at what happened in Ghana when demonstrators were beaten to a pulp. And
It's actually going to be our next topic.
Yeah, but
I forgot to add it, but we are discussing that.
But you get what I'm saying? That the right of the individual doesn't matter to people. Sometimes when we you know, this incident where in the US where so the policeman killed that black man and we're complaining. But we do worse to our own people. Because it was in the news and it was in the CNN, you had African leaders and other global leaders condemning that act. Well, we do worse to our own people in our country. We take our people through slavery. Look, the Sudan situation is really a bad case. We've not been able to deal with Somalia. Somalia has basically become a terrible case. Somalia is nearly a stateless. Occasionally when US feel, look, we need people, they come and pick people from Somalia, help them integrate into their system. But Somalia as a country itself almost doesn't exist. And we are basically doing the same thing with Sudan. Because it will get to a point when it becomes too difficult to do anything. it may become stateless because people are dying for food. But globally, we have food that can feed everybody, and there will be leftover. It's a sad situation. I feel probably as we, the people ourselves, are failing. But if we hold our leaders responsible in our countries and do so without partisan consideration and do so without feeling intimidated, we may not get to that stage. So it's not the AU as a bloc. African countries, people living in Africa and Africans living in their country and in the diaspora need to start holding leaders responsible, accountable. Because I'm sure if Africa is able to feed itself and have excess, Sudan will not be in the state in which it is. Because then when we have excess, it should be possible for us to even send grains to Sudan. But we ourselves, we don't even have enough grains to eat, even though we have lands lying in fallow. So it's a bad situation, but honestly, I don't feel that AU can do anything. Trust me, in the net you hear that we are talking to the EU, to China, and to other countries.
The US actually has come in.
Yeah, because you see, the challenge is that what is the fallout? There will be a lot more persons who will be available to be recruited for terrorist acts because they are not getting food to do, if they are not getting anything to do. So if they are recruited, why not? They will get into terrorism and the world will suffer as a result. So persons who believe that, or countries which believe that, look, we can be the next target for terrorism, may have to come in. Somalia case, what happened? They became pirates and were basically hijacking vessels that were using their routes. And in recent cases where we had terrorism in the Gulf of Guinea, in a number of instances, persons who were involved were persons who had been recruited from the Somalia area, who have expertise and were being used for the terrorism acts. So it becomes a problem not just for Sudan, it becomes a problem also for Africa and a global problem. And it must be addressed as a global issue, but not as an AU issue. Sorry, I don't believe that the AU has what it takes to deal with it.
Right. Thank you very much. We just concluded with the African story, the situation in Sudan. Away from that, we are coming back to Ghana. There are many issues of our own. But let me remind you that we are live on Facebook and YouTube. You can join us. Also, the text line has been displayed on your screen. Make sure you do what to leave a message. 055-991-9802. 055-919-9802. Leave a message. I'll read them in the course of the show. Right. Let's look at this very interesting story. The protest that happened a few days ago, Democracy Hub, they have been protesting against illegal mining, galamsey for that matter, and have been asking government to stamp its feet on the ground, bring these activities of these illegal miners to a halt. But that demonstration that was supposed to be peaceful turned chaotic at some point. The Ghana Police Service was actually issuing press statements as and when whatever happened. I follow them on Facebook, so they were issuing press statements. I was reading their press statements every step of the way. Now, in the beginning, people, and I've seen people praise the Ghana Police, especially in the beginning, for how they conducted themselves. But then again, also, some people are also calling the actions of the demonstrators into question as to certain things that they did as demonstrators, which they believe was over the line and perhaps incurred the wrath of the Ghana Police Service. Oliver Bakavomao is alleged to have turned off the ignition of a police van and bolted with a key. I think consequently he turned himself into the police. Also, party paraphernalia and insignia, as we can see on our screens. That's Oliver Bakavomao carrying a dummy elephant, which is the symbol of the New Patriotic Party. And they broke it, bent some party flags, as you can see. So in as much as, I mean, we are saying that people have the democratic right to protest, but look at some of these actions as well. Then, of course, the police would also say that whatever you are doing is illegal, and so we are going to arrest you and then put you behind bars, remand you immediately. The judiciary would put you on remand immediately in order to stop some of these things. I see Audu Ishak is itching to speak on this matter.
Well, Bless, I have taken part in a series of demonstrations outside of Accra. I have been a lead organizer of protests and demonstrations, and we are all aware that the right to demonstrate is guaranteed. The right to a peaceful protest is guaranteed, and indeed Chapter 5 of the 1992 Constitution, the entirety of Chapter 5 is dedicated to fundamental human rights and freedoms. And it is not for nothing that you would have a whole chapter in a constitution like ours dedicated to ensuring and guaranteeing fundamental human rights and freedoms. And for me, I get a little shocked when the Ghana Police Service decides to stand up against people who intend to express a right that is guaranteed by the Constitution. I could cite so many other examples, but I would just cite the Arise Ghana demonstration in 2022. If you cast your mind back, when we decided that we were going to do a 2-day non-stop demonstration, the Ghana Police Service did all that they could to frustrate our plan to demonstrate in the manner we wanted to demonstrate. Now, the day one of the demonstration turned chaotic because the police service decided to confront organizers of the demonstration by trying to divert the course of the demonstration. The second day, when they decided to be as professional as they could be, it was very peaceful, and we commended them after the demonstration. I am saying this because anytime you see a peaceful demonstration rather turning chaotic, the Ghana Police Service is being manipulated, and they decide to be unprofessional in the conduct of their mandate in protecting the demonstrators. In fact, the Ghana Police Service and their role in any demonstration or peaceful process is very simple: to safeguard the demonstrators and the general public. That is your only responsibility. You are not to determine the routes for a demonstration. No.
What if those routes
Bless, what is so important, or what is so crucial and critical about the Jubilee House, the road in front of the Jubilee House, to the extent that demonstrations cannot peacefully pass through that road?
See, it's a security zone.
So in 2016, it was not a security zone. In 2016, Occupy Ghana, they demonstrated, they actually converged at Afrikiko. Look at the closeness of Afrikiko to the Flagstaff House then. Today, people want to demonstrate, and they want to converge at the Revolution Square, and you say that they cannot do that. Look at the proximity between the proximity between the Afrikiko and the Flagstaff House as compared to the Revolutionary Square to the Flagstaff House, or the Jubilee House for that matter. Compare the two proximities. What it means is that we have a regime today that is so intolerant, a regime that is not allowing the Ghana Police Service to perform their duties in a very professional manner. You understand? The confrontation that Arise Ghana had with the Ghana Police Service was because we said that we wanted to use the same routes. The confrontation that the democracy have had with the police service 2-3 days back is because of a similar insistence by the Ghana Police Service that they cannot use that stretch of the road. What do you need to do? Just block that stretch of the road. Stand in between the street and the Jubilee House and allow the protesters to come and pass. What is so difficult about this for the Ghana Police Service to do? Because if you have the power, you have the men to be able to block an entire street so that they don't pass through it, why can't you block the demonstrators and keep them away from having access to the Jubilee House? Because from the street to the Jubilee House, bless, it's about 50 meters away. Is it not? Is it not? And you see, the Ghana Police Service, usually they play into the hands of the public and they allow themselves to be ridiculed. All what is happening today, people know for sure that the Ghana Police Service is being manipulated. But it is being done in a very latent manner, that you can't just point your fingers at any particular person in the executive or government and say that these are the people setting up the Ghana Police Service against the people. But we have seen the Ghana Police Service actively involved in a confrontation with demonstrators. So we will take them to task. You understand? In any case, what is the reason for this particular demonstration? That we don't want our water bodies to be destroyed. That we don't want our forest cover to continue to be depleted. That the effects of allowing such a phenomenon to continue would come and haunt all of us in the not too distant future. We are going to suffer from it. How would a demonstration on such a premise affect the government of the day? So you understand why people say that the government is complicit and that agents of the government and people in government are actively involved in galamsey. Otherwise, you will not try to frustrate a citizen's demonstration against galamsey. People are simply demonstrating against galamsey. And you as a government, you feel uncomfortable about that decision. And you think that people would not say that you are involved in galamsey. You understand? When you go and take the plagiarized speech of the president on 7th January 2017, what did he say? I call on you to be citizens and not spectators. Today, the people want to be citizens and you say that no, they should shut up and go home and die. Because, bless, by now, we are all aware from research upon research the effects of galamsey on the people. People developing resistance to all manner of medications, people being bombed, not properly matured, and all of that. And we say that that must stop. And the president thinks that, because if you as a president, you put your presidency in quotes on the line in the fight against galamsey, which turned out to be an abysmal performance. And then the citizens say that we want to help you to fight the menace. You should be empowering and encouraging the citizens and not go out there and use the Ghana Police Service to try to frustrate the people. Today, those fundamental human rights we were all talking about, as guaranteed in the Constitution, have been flouted in a manner that has never been seen. That people are arrested and people don't know where they have been taken to, and that lawyers make requests to know the whereabouts of people who have been arrested. And the Ghana Police Service is unwilling. And that we hear protesters who have been detained, saying that for 2 hours, they have had no access to food or water. In Kwame Nkrumah's Ghana, under a so-called champion of human rights as president. That cannot be accepted. It could happen to any one of us here because we are all activists. And but for the fact that I have other things to do because of what is happening to my presidential candidate's disqualification by the Electoral Commission, I would have been at that demonstration. So I could have easily been picked as well. So we have to speak up. This must not stop us. This must be an opportunity for us to speak up and tell the government and its assigns, including the Ghana Police Service, that this cannot be happening today. This cannot happen. It cannot cower us into submission. We have a right to express our revulsion about whatever we see to be wrong with the Ghana that we all belong to. Nobody owns Ghana. We are the reasons for which you have a president. Without the people, you cannot be a president. The president is there to ensure our welfare as a people. If he does not know that, we must remind him. And I think that we need to be organizing another demonstration calling for the release of all of these people. The judiciary cannot be manipulated to do what they are doing. Remanding people on such frivolous grounds for merely expressing their views and opinions by way of a public demonstration and protest.
The police says they were destroying property.
What? Whose property? Whose property? Is that the property belong to the police? Has anybody come to complain about destruction of his property?
Well,
that cannot be allowed to go on.
Well,
the people must be released. And the lawyers must up their game. We are with them. We will support them to secure the release of all of those people who have been detained. I'm happy that we have a lawyer in our mix. And I'm sure that we will know from the law angle what this means. But
I was coming to that.
I feel so disgusted,
yes,
just like majority of Ghanaians, that what happened should not have happened, and those people must be released unconditionally.
Right. Hamza, you take the final bite. Let me turn my attention to Mr. Rista. Also, he will share his thoughts with us on this demonstration. For me, per what I've seen, this is from a personal point of view. I support the fact that, look, we should protest against illegal mining. We've been told that in the next few years we may have to import water. This morning I was listening to the radio. They're saying that the pharmaceuticals companies would have to import water even now in order to meet their needs. So it's an issue. But you look at the excesses of the demonstrators as well. I mean, burning. I'm not sure if it were the NDC's party paraphernalia that these demonstrators were burning, you'd be excited with it. I'm not sure if it were to be the PNC's party paraphernalia.
No, but the fact remains that you cannot extricate the government from what the Ghana Police Service was doing. And the government is there. The government is there. The government is there at the behest of a certain party, and the party is the MPP. Right. So the people have the right to express their dissatisfaction with MPP.
Right. Mr. Rista.
Yeah. I don't know if we should get there, even to demonstrate. But you see, my joy online, illegal miners threatening fisher folks on Black Volta with weapons. President, fishermen, inland fishermen. Do we need to get there? Where fishermen who are going for their livelihood are threatened by illegal miners with weapons. Do we need to get there? You see, you don't know the seriousness of this situation probably until you go to the hospital and the doctor tells you that you've injected so much mercury in your system because you've eaten fish that are taking in mercury, and so you are on your way out prematurely. You won't understand this until probably you know that you've taken in too much cyanide into your system, and so your system is not functioning well. Probably you begin to appreciate the situation we are dealing with when your wife delivers and the child has some deformities and all of that, and your child, through no fault of his or hers, become abnormal and find it difficult to fit in society. Then you know the harm that a few people who, for their greed, are causing entire country. You probably may not appreciate this until probably Cote d'Ivoire then decide to stage a war against Ghana for the fact that we are destroying their water bodies through illegal mining activities, because it's going trans-boundary into Ivory Coast. you may not appreciate the challenge that people are facing until you go to Axim and all those areas where Ankobra and Pra wash into the ocean, and people who have their investments, they have resort and all of that, closing down completely because the coastal line had all been polluted and it's turned brown, and so people no longer patronize their businesses. Probably, if you're a fisherman like me, you would begin to appreciate the challenge that we are going through with all these illegal mining activities. So you see, we don't need to get here, because we have laws that are supposed to protect our water bodies and protect our forests, particularly our forest reserve. But what did we do? We went to Parliament and gave the President the power to give people the authority to go into forest reserves and mine and cut down trees that had been there for 300, 400 years and not replant them. And people believe that we should continue like that. You go to Cape Coast sometimes and you open the tap and the water that comes out is brown. No, you see, people need to look at the challenge we face. So we don't need to get to the point where citizens will have to demonstrate. I was in Norway quite long, I think about 5 weeks ago. And in my hotel, they didn't serve me bottled water because they had indicated that I could fetch water from the tap and drink. Because they believe so much that their water is so clean. I was in Sweden some years ago, and they said you could even fetch water from any stream and drink. When we're young and we're going to the village, my village is around Kota Krabwa district, the stream there, Kuya, we could fetch water from the stream and drink it straight. Except for instances where you may fear for bilharzia, you never got worried about the water having been extremely polluted. I drove to Sudan not long ago, and the Densu there was completely brown. No, if you've driven around the country, probably 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and you've seen the beauty of these water bodies, you've seen the beauty of our forests, and then you see what is happening today to our water bodies and to our forests, and your conscience doesn't prick you, then you are not human. Particularly if you are in a position where you could make decisions and influence policy, and you do nothing about this, and you feel that it's business as usual, that will destroy our country, then you have a huge problem. And you see, and the people always say it, yes, you have people who are paid peanuts to cause the destruction, but the people who are mass wealth are buying properties elsewhere and taking their children out of the country. And yet, they continue to destroy our environment. Our environment is everything we have. Look, you may have all the money in the world. If we don't get the environmental factors right, we don't have life. Because we need to take in oxygen. So we need to keep our trees so we can take in oxygen. When we are increasing our vehicle population and we want to industrialize, the only way we are safe is to have a lot more trees that can absorb a lot more of the carbon dioxide that we are injecting into the system. So if we sit aloof and we continue to increase the carbon dioxide level and decrease our trees, we are killing ourselves. We are destroying ourselves. Look, beyond galamsey, I grew up, I was born, I'm a native of Tema. I was born in Tema. I've lived all my life in Tema. And when I was growing up, there were trees everywhere. There were mango trees in the bush, so we go out there, we play, and we could just, mangoes were on the tree, you could pluck mango, and you could eat mango. There were coconut trees along the beach. And so you see, it made life not just fun, but also a bit easier. Today, you hardly find trees in Tema. Our consciousness about the environment is so poor, extremely poor. And this is a time where we have a lot more educated people who have studied more. My grandfather had a tree in front of the house until today. He didn't allow us to cut it. And so it's still there today. They understood the need to preserve the environment. They understood the need to do things right because they knew that they needed the environment more than the environment needed them. So we didn't even need to get to the point where people would have to get onto the street to say we are demonstrating because we are destroying our environment. We didn't need to get there. That's my challenge with all this. Do we need to have organized labor taking time out of their work to organize press conferences and say, if you don't stop galamsey, we'll go on demonstration? Do we need to have Ghana Medical Association come out to say, look, galamsey is destroying lives, is destroying fetuses, and that children that are being born are coming up with deformities because of galamsey? I understand Obuasi, they have some oranges, they call it no, they have corrupted the name cyanide.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
For that orange, mm-hmm. And it's so sweet. But interestingly, it's a lot of cyanide in it. Oh. You understand it? So that's how they call it, but they corrupted the name cyanide. But it is worrying. You see, it is worrying, and especially when the president puts his presidency online. It meant that he understood the gravity of the situation.
Yeah. That's
why he will put his presidency online and say that if he's not able to fight it, he will resign as president. It means something he didn't take lightly. So what went wrong? Why would citizens stop all the things they are doing to go and demonstrate, to draw people's attention to what is so obvious, and nobody till today has resigned for failing? At least we had Dr. Kobna Donkor resigning over the electricity crisis. Mm-hmm. You get it? So why is it that people are so comfortably holding their position when we cannot address the galamsey menace? Who armed them to even chase fishermen away from their daily routine? Where do the arms pass, and why is it that nobody is able to disarm them? Because military people go and they say that people are armed, and so they are unable to disarm them. The excavators that they use, where do they pass? Ghana, we do not manufacture excavators. So they are imported, they get through the ports. Somebody should be able to know for what purpose the excavators are coming. And if we are serious people, we should be able to monitor what each excavator is doing. The champagnes that they use on the water, we know some of them are manufactured locally, but they are on the water. We see them all the time. So why do we even need a demonstration to get to this point? And that is what makes it annoying, that something that you know somebody has to do, has the power to do, you pay the person to do, and the person is not doing, when you decide to hit the street to demonstrate, you demonstrate with some level of anger. Because you see, if your life is being put at risk, some people feel, oh, I sit in Accra, nobody's mining here. Like I said, all the water from upstream flow into the ocean. So if you decide that you are not even eating inland water fish or freshwater fish, and you decide to eat fish from the sea, they are likely to be contaminated also. Because we've seen, I don't know if you've seen videos of the coastline in the western and part of the central region, all turning brown.
Yes.
And so everything about the galamsey is being washed. Our cocoa prices today are getting so low. And I can assure you that if we don't do anything about it, we may not even be able to market our cocoa on the international market. And we know what if today you say you can't stop the illegal miners because you are likely to lose money. Imagine when our cocoa industry crashes just because of galamsey. You know, we will not be able to export any cocoa. Even the local industry may not be able to take the cocoa that we grow here and then add value to them. So we are going to lose jobs. Look, the situation is terrible. And I don't think that people demonstrate at the White House all the time. People demonstrate at the White House all the time. So if the police provide protection and the people say, we want to pass through, even if they have to present a petition to the president, they are allowed. Except that you need to escort people to a point where a designated person, if the president himself will not take it, a designated person would have to take the petition.
Right.
Because once you become a president, you don't become a president for a political party.
Right, right.
So when citizens have issues, there must be a way for them to get their issues across to the president. And they require to have a feedback system. I think we need to look at this thing again.
Right.
Even matters about Palestinians, you have people demonstrating in White House. It was not in the US, it was in Palestine, Israel and Palestine. Demonstrators were at the entrance of the White House demonstrating. Right. They even surrounded the White House. Nobody beats them. So if you conduct your activities such that people believe that they are protected, because the police have a responsibility to protect all citizens and all properties. So if the police takes a position, you anger people. You see, we must make demonstration flow. We must make people exercise that right, knowing that they are citizens enjoying the right that is guaranteed in the Constitution.
Right.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Ristaniama Matthew. Let me do a few messages before I come to Mr. Hamza Suhini. Komensan says to continue free SHS, press 1, simple. Regards to Honorable Fatima to Abubakar, Information Minister Ofo by Komensan Pillar 2. All right, thank you. Adam Suleimana says, great submission from the General Secretary of the PNC. Nazir Mohammed says that the obnoxious daily guide labeled the protesters as NDC was a signal to deny anyone arrested their rights. As usual, order from the above means the police members brought in at the Buga MPP foot soldiers. It was also to signal to us that this is what will happen to anyone trying to stand up to them on December 7th. This is not a democracy, it's an autocracy. Someone said if Nana ever became president, we'll have problem getting him out. You see? Ajans Rahman says, how do PNC National General Secretary elect? Great submission. You are always a delight to watch and listen to anytime you're on the show. Right, thank you. Isaac Duda says, bless. What have you taken this morning before coming to sit on the show to speak on galamsey? You are sympathetic of protesters burning party paraphernalia, right? Do you know the health implications of galamsey as compared to party what and what? I beg, tone down on your stance. All right, thank you very much. I've heard you. Nazir Mohammed says, if the AG has taken the issues of prosecution of those involved in galamsey as seriously as he is doing with the protesters, there wouldn't have been people needing to demonstrate against illegal mining. This isn't a mafia running this country. This is a mafia running this country, and they don't have welfare in mind. Is the damage to party paraphernalia more important than our waters? Okay, Patrick Nketia says, good morning. Good morning, Patrick. Many thanks for tuning in. Alhaji Hamza says, good morning, my brother. Today we are being told by communicators and functionaries of MPP that they cannot fight galamsey simply because they lost a lot of seats in the mining areas. This goes to show that President Anado and Dr. Bawumia think of party interest first before the nation. In any case, galamsey is on the increase in the Ashanti region and Eastern region. Tell me how many seats the NDC won in these areas. Honorable Mekuduka is all over the place, calling on the galamseyers to rise up and defend themselves. We are again being told by functionaries of this government that the country is making a lot of money from the small-scale miners to improve the economy of the country. All right, thank you so much, Alhaji Hamza from Pig Farm. Thank you for your message, and always thanks for tuning in. Hadi from Pig Farm 2 says, good morning to you and your panelists. President Nanado is the only president who has disappointed the past, disappointed the present, and disappointed the future. Surely the Nanado-Bawumia government will forever remain the biggest disappointment of the Fourth Republic of our dear nation. History will judge them, and they will go down in history books as failures. May Allah save Mother Ghana from the hands of this Creed Loot and Share family and friends government. Let me read two more. Good morning, blessed. Nanado is turning his failures as clueless president into oppression and dictatorship upon us, but he should bear in mind that we've seen worse dictators and oppressors before him, but they are nowhere to be found today. Wallahi, he and his thugs can't intimidate us. Bibi from Accra, thank you, Bibi, and always you tune in to watch us. Efo Fafa, good morning, bless. Watching you live this morning again. God bless you all. God bless you too, Efo Fafa, and thank you for doing the watching. This last one, I am Jones J. Duku from Brekum. It's a long time ahead of Uncle Pratt. Please, when will he be on the show? Uncle Pratt has been away for some time now, but I can guarantee that next week you would see him on the show. All right, let me now come to Mr. Hamza Suhini, who would also explore the legal angle of the arrest of these protesters. The very fact that we do not even know the police cells some of them have been placed, and it appears that this is expeditious justice that is being meted out to them. How quickly, they are taken to court and then given 2 weeks remand. What exactly does the law say about this, and the very fact that they've been denied bail for that matter?
I think first of all, I see that the attempt to more or less prevent me from commenting on the social and political implications of this unfortunate situation. But nonetheless, our attempt to respond to your questions. I think, Bless, we all appreciate that this country is regulated by laws. And when it comes to arrests, the powers of the police, and to some extent private persons, to exercise or to effect arrests, is generally contained in the Criminal Procedure Act. That is what we call Act 30. And so the police can either arrest with a warrant or arrest without a warrant. And the conditions upon which the police can arrest without a warrant is specifically stated in Act 30. I think somewhere Section 10 of Act 30. I cannot readily recollect, but I'm pretty much convinced it's within that range. And to be quite honest and professional in terms of my response to this question, if you look at the grounds that the Act stipulates under which the police can arrest without warrant, it includes obstruction in the performance of the duties of the police. And so the singular act of Oliver probably turning off the engine of the police vehicle can be argued to have fallen within those particular parameters or grounds. And so I do not necessarily have a problem in terms of the legal implications of the arrest, because the same act provides the procedure for us to take advantage of if we feel that the nature of the arrest was done improperly. And that is where my disappointment comes. And also, it gives a guide to the judiciary in terms of how to deal with persons who have been arrested and brought before them. And that raises another fundamental issue of our lack of fidelity to both the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana and to other statutes, specifically Act 30. And that is why I agree entirely with my brother that there seemed to be the impression that there are some unseen hands in the way and manner that the protesters have been dealt with in terms of the refusal of the judiciary to grant bail. And I make this with clear conviction that whatever happened 2 days ago in terms of the refusal to grant bail was simply political. And I'll explain why. If you look at the same Act 30, bless, it is stated in section 96 the grounds upon which the courts are to grant bail. And excuse me, I'll just read it out briefly for you to guide our discussion. So, section 96, granting of bail, and I'm bringing you directly to section 96.3. It says, 5. A court shall refuse to grant bail if it is satisfied that the defendant, A, may not appear to stand trial, or B, may interfere with the witness or the evidence, or in any way hamper police investigation, or C, may commit a further offense when on bail, or D, is charged with an offense punishable by imprisonment exceeding 6 months, which is alleged to have been committed while the defendant was on bail. These are the grounds. Undoubtedly, it is the discretion of the judge. But let us be honest with ourselves. Reading these grounds, do we agree that those who were picked up fall under any of these grounds? Absolutely not. These are people we can identify. These are people who do not pose any form of threat or the possibility of absconding out of this country. And they do not even have the means to abscond. And so there's no basis for continuing to keep them on the basis that you are remanding them. For what? For simply exercising a right to freedom of speech? Or attempting to hold their governments accountable? And that same provision, under 96.4, tells us that the court should not exercise that power as a form of punishment. What is being done is clearly in breach of this particular provision. Because I agree that it is the discretionary power of the court or the judge to either grant or grant bail, grant or deny bail. But we are all in this country. When Martin Kwebu went to case, I think we call it the Martin Kwebu line of cases, where 96.7 of Act 30, the Criminal Procedure Code, was struck down by the court. Remember, under 96.7, there were certain offenses if you had committed, including murder, you were not allowed bail, you were denied bail. The Supreme Court, in its wisdom, thought that it was irrational and an affront to the fundamental human rights of accused persons, especially operating a system where we argue that all accused persons are innocent until proven guilty. So there was no need for you to have a certain line of crimes that automatically says that people are denied bail, and it was struck down. An analysis of that decision of the Supreme Court simply sought to suggest that when it comes to bail, the court must be inclined more in granting bail than denying it. That's the logical deduction to draw. That is why they deemed it appropriate to strike down that particular provision of Act 30. And so today, if you are exercising your power of arrest without recourse to that judgment, and most importantly to the conditions outlined in the Criminal Procedure Code, one cannot resist the conclusion that it is being done as a punishment to those people, especially when they are being denied access to food. And that is worrying. And the conduct of the judiciary, if some of these things are not checked, it erodes the confidence of the Ghanaian people in the judicial system. We must all do our best to ensure that politicians do not interfere as far as the performance of the judiciary and its functions are concerned. And for me, that is a source of concern. And so I can tell you in all honesty that my appreciation of the law and the powers of arrest, and in terms of granting of bail or the denial of it, I feel that there's something amiss with this particular situation. In any case, the courts were even reluctant to give a list of arrested persons to the leaders of the demonstration. What were they trying to hide? What were they trying to hide? Ordinarily, you are expected to let them know, because you see, some of them, they need, even if you are going to grant bail, people would need to come and sign that surety. So inform their families, even if you are unwilling to inform the leaders of the demonstration. You do not deal with them as though you are running a court where you are not accountable as a police force to anybody in this country. And that conduct must be condemned, because you see, bless, tomorrow, God forbid, you could be picked up without anybody knowing. And that is why we all have to be concerned. And like Ishak indicated, what the heck is wrong with Ghanaians raising legitimate concerns about the failure of the government of the day to protect the environment and the health implications of such failure on their livelihoods? What is wrong with that? We've all known that when it comes to demonstrations, like he indicated, depending on the conduct of the police, demonstrations can turn violent. We know. So it was the responsibility of the police force to manage the demonstrations in such a way that it doesn't become violent. So let us not put the blame on the doorstep of the participants of the demonstration alone, because it was supposed to be a joint responsibility. So it is not the failure on the leaders of the demonstration alone. The police also failed in terms of how they conducted themselves. And what Oliver did, Oliver would have justification for his conduct, despite the fact that it may have been in conflict with the law, like I indicated. So there is the need for the police force to understand that when they are called upon to protect demonstrators, they are not called upon to arrest them. That is not their first mandate. And bless, you see, what kind of hypocrisy is this? You see, I do not in any way sanction the burning of party paraphernalia. But considering the state we are in as a country, that is the least of my concerns. Do you know the havoc that is being caused to babies? Largely because of the pollution of our water bodies. Do you know the number of viable farmlands we have lost in this country as a result of galamsey? Do you have an appreciation of the health implications on the Ghanaian people as a result of the water we drink? Do you appreciate the economic implications of the careless and reckless decision of this government not to take the galamsey fight a bit higher? Do you understand the implication it's even having on the functioning of state institutions? The Ghana Water Company Limited is collapsing because you have run the economy down. Our city has depreciated like never before. And so the cost of the Ghana Water Company Limited, even treating our water bodies, has gone up. And on top of the skyrocketing costs and their inability to meet up the daily treatment plans, what you are doing is, because of your failure to fight illegal mining, the quantity of chemicals they even need to treat the water has quadrupled. Because even if they needed just 1 ton of chemical to treat water as a result of galamsey, they now need more than 6 tons of such chemicals to treat it in an environment where your city has depreciated. So, and we do not produce them in this country, the chemicals for treatment. What it simply means is that they now need more dollars to even import chemicals to treat it. At the end of the day, they would give us water that is not well treated, or they will give us water that is heavily treated and we have chemicals in it, and that will pose a significant health risk to the good people of this country. So we all are not safe. It's not just those in the hospitals or those around those communities. The water we drink from our pipes and what we call pure water that we buy on the streets, we are all not safe as we speak today. And if a government cannot even protect your water bodies, when we say water is life, what then is the use of such a government? And so if the people are angry and want to demonstrate that this is a reckless government, this is an incompetent one, this is a wicked regime, and they decide to display that displeasure by burning your party paraphernalia or any other party paraphernalia for that matter, I do not. In all honesty, I do not have any issues with that. And my greatest disappointment, even came from the reckless and disappointing conduct of the National Youth Organizer of the New Patriotic Party. Our water bodies have been destroyed. It is having an effect on everybody, including you and your household. And at that critical moment, what was of concern to you was to organize your party youth. We are mandated to lead responsibly. At that critical moment, what was important to you was to organize your party youth to go and confront the demonstrators because they were burning your party paraphernalia. What the heck? Your party paraphernalia and that of the livelihoods of the Ghanaian people, which one is more important? As a responsible youth leader, I would have expected him to have organized youth of this country to call on his own government to ensure that galamseyers are stopped from destroying our water bodies. I would have expected a responsible youth leader to even at least have organized his own youth to go into the galamsey areas to educate those engaged in galamsey about the hazards their activities are posing to the Ghanaian people on behalf of his government. That is what responsible leadership is about. So that conduct of the National Youth Organizer of the New Patriotic Party reflects the poor intellectual discourse that has characterized our governance. Because these are people who are expected to propose policies that would inure to the benefit of the Ghanaian youth, especially to their government. So what do you expect from such a person in terms of policy? And so, let us send a very strong signal this morning to the government and to the Ghana Police Services. I can assure you, I am willing to support in any other way, and I have started calling for it, another demonstration to demand the release of those they have arrested. I will participate in any such demonstration to demand the release of Ghanaians who decided to stand up for us. I was not in the country at the time. I would have been part of that demonstration. And so, if you are listening to me, whether you are a civil society organization, a student union that is interested in ensuring that we inject some level of sanity into our political space and democratic space, and you think that what is happening to those arrested is unjust, let us come together and organize another massive demonstration to send a strong signal to this wicked, callous, and reckless regime. A president who has no respect for the good people of this country, that enough is enough. The time has come for us to show as a people that we are not timid, and that Nanado cannot be the alpha and omega of our existence, and that he can be stopped. It is so frustratingly annoying. This country does not belong to Nanado or Baumia or the NPP. It belongs to all of us. And the power Nanado pretends to be exercising is power we bequeath unto him. And it is power we can take away from him. And it is important for the Ghanaian people to make him understand that he's nobody without the power we give him.
Right. Thank you very much, Hamza. That was an impassioned submission there on the issue of the protest and galamsey. But let me, I wanted to take time to read some of your messages, but let me straight away go to Audu Ishak. He is going to be updating us with happenings of the PNC and the Electoral Commission of Ghana, the disqualification of their flag bearer, Bernard Tyler Mona. I know that this issue is in court now. They are seeking redress in court. What could happen? What could happen as we speak? The balloting has already been done. The PNC is not a part of it. A few other political parties aren't part of it. What could change? I in my earlier in my earlier introduction, I told you that there's been precedent. It's happened before in 2016, but when it happened, the balloting process was actually put on hold for the court to resolve the matter before, you know, the balloting was done. In this case, in this scenario, balloting has already been done. Is it still reversible? How do you check?
Well, Blaise, I think that the law is law. It does not matter at what point in time the matter is addressed. Now, you are aware that because of the delayed nature of our National Congress, where we elected our presidential candidate, we're racing against time, but we submitted our forms on the 13th. That was the final day given by the Electoral Commission for the submission of the nomination forms. We were called on 14th to come back for the forms. The Electoral Commission claimed they had seen some errors on the forms, and we were called to come pick up the forms and return the forms the following day. The letter was addressed on the 13th, but we received the letter on the 14th, and we're supposed to bring back the forms the same 14th by 2 p.m. So we had less than 6 hours to correct the so-called errors and return the forms. In fact, when we took the forms, the Electoral Commission had not particularized the errors or specifically pointed to any errors. They just indicated pages. And so when we took the forms, probably there were omissions in some form numbers. Maybe there were, so some people did not include dates. Some residential addresses were incomplete. So we took our time, did all of that, and submitted the forms. We exceeded the 2 p.m. by close to an hour, because we got the Electoral Commission close to 3 p.m. We submitted the forms. They indicated acceptance and receipt of the forms on the 14th. We never heard anything from the Electoral Commission again until I think on the 20th, when through social media, I saw that one particular candidate had been invited and given an official letter by the EC to come for balloting. So I tried reaching out to my presidential candidate, whether he had been written to, because the letter I saw was addressed to the presidential candidate and not the general secretary. So I said, maybe, could it be that it had been addressed to him and it had not yet come to my notice? That did not happen. So by 9 a.m. that morning, when everything appeared that there was some sinister agenda going on, we caused our lawyers to write to the EC on the 20th. As we sit now, the EC has not yet responded to the letter written by our lawyers. They only gave us a letter expressing their regrets that we could not, as it were, qualify to contest in the 2024 presidential elections. As we sit now, the Electoral Commission has not been able to indicate to us why they think that we are not qualified, because they say that they identified several errors. What are those errors? They indicated that there were a mismatch of endorsee details with their districts they are supposed to have registered to vote. They did not indicate that this particular voter is not supposed to have his details in this district or in that district. They made a very blanket kind of allusion to the fact that they wanted to destroy us, but to disqualify us. But as I keep saying, we believe that we have a very solid case. I think that as for errors, as for clerical errors, if you give somebody a voluminous document, 139 pages, supposed to be filled in quadruples, you need 4 of that. We know of parliamentary political parties that did a photocopy of the forms and submitted. The EC called them back and said that they should go and sit down and do it in writing and bring back. They were given more than 5 days to fill their forms and send it back.
How many pages?
139 pages.
Why?
Yes.
Yeah,
You need two endorsees from each district. 260 something districts.
Wow.
And then you have the personal records. You have the personal records of the candidate, the personal records of the vice presidential candidate, and all of that. And we keep telling you that if you go and take the form, even the Electoral Commission, that is being funded through the taxes of the good people of Ghana, in putting together their form, they made a clerical error on the personal records or the personal details of the candidate. When they wanted to write sex, male or female, they wrote sex. That is an official document. Such an important document. The EC made a mistake. So why do they think that people who about 500 and something people would have to endorse the form? Why do you think that 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 cannot make a mistake? On those forms, you understand? And still in that document, the Electoral Commission, on a certain section, they were labeling the sections A, B, C, D. When they go to D, they couldn't capture E. They jump straight to F in alphabetical order. That is an Electoral Commission that is overpopulated in terms of staff, that has commissioners with PhDs and all of that. So if they can make mistakes, why do they think that political parties in their secretariats cannot make such mistakes? So I can tell you that court hearing would be on the 7th of October. And we know that the Electoral Commission cannot go ahead and start the printing of ballot papers, even though balloting has taken place, because nobody prints ballot papers based on a provisional voters register. Indeed, until 2024, never in the history of Ghana, Ghanaian elections, have political parties ever submitted presidential nominations based on a provisional register. You always have a final register. You understand? Because some of the people you say, they must be registered voters. If you have not cleaned the register, how sure are you that the person is qualified to even be on the register in the first place? And you are asking somebody to go and take those details to fill a presidential nominations form. And so the inadequacies of this Electoral Commission are far more grievous than the clerical errors that our political parties are claimed to have made, the reason for which they think that we cannot participate in the 2024 elections. Bless, I can assure you and the good people of Ghana that Bernard Mona would participate in the 2024 elections. And at the end of the day, the good people of Ghana, they would get the president that they want. The Electoral Commission is not in a position to choose who ought to be the next president of the Republic of Ghana. They should concentrate on putting their house in order, listening to the views being expressed by the good people of Ghana as regards their incapacity, as regards their ineptitude, and as regards their inadequacies as a commission compared to other commissions that have come and gone.
Right.
Yeah. After 2 minutes, I do not intend to run over on the subject of disqualification. I think that it should be clear to any watcher of our political space the reason why Bernard Mona has been disqualified. And these are the issues that some of us have always spoken about. And it raises issues of neutrality as far as the Electoral Commission is concerned. And of course, the role of Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia and the MPP in the specific disqualification of Bernard Mona. It should be clear. Anybody who knows the history of the PNC knows that the PNC was born and raised as a political party in the Northeast region. And if you look at the trajectory of votes since its formation, a chunk of its votes always comes from the Northeast region, because Edward Nasagri Mahama himself hails from that region. And it is to protect Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia. That is why he accepted the appointment as ambassador of large with the ultimate aim of simply killing the PNC and creating a space for Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia to take advantage of the votes from the Northeast region because they are all Mamprishis. If you doubt what I'm saying, just go back to our electoral history and compare the figures. Even when Hassan Ayarga led the PNC, his highest votes came from the Northeast region, over 0.92% from the Northeast region. Because Northerners can be very loyal. And so if this is their political party and their history, there's the tendency, and we are talking in excess of over 22,000 votes. So if this is the threat, that is the threat the MPP considers, and Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, and that of Bosman and Jean Mensah. So the agenda is simply to prevent the PNC from getting those votes with the expectation that those votes would naturally align with Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia and add to the NPP basket. So it has nothing to do with clerical errors. The Electoral Commission is simply pursuing the interests of Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia and the New Patriotic Party. Nobody should think that there's something to this. Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia and Bernard Mona, who is conversant with our political space of this country, who has been a veteran politician, who understands the politics and the conduct of the Electoral Commission. Let us be honest with ourselves. When it comes to the political space of this country, Bernard Mona stands tall. So if the NPP that is being headed by Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, you think that they can be so meticulous not to make mistakes on their filing, and it is Bernard Mona, a veteran politician who's gone through the mill, and his political party, the PNC, that has been in existence for some time, that would make such mistakes. Come on. We all know that this is an agenda of Mahamudu Bawumia and Dr. Bosman Asari specifically. I know him because he taught me in political science, and I know his disdain for the National Democratic Congress and his love for the New Patriotic Party, even in his lecture halls. And it is not surprising that he's the hatchet man of the MPP, as far as all these evil plots are concerned. But I can assure them that they can do whatever they like. This election, it should be in the interest of Bosman Asari and Jean Mensah, and that of MPP functionaries, that John Dramani Mahama is declared president. It should be in their interest. Anything to the contrary, my goodness God. Good morning, bless.
Mr. Rista, you have anything to add?
See, like I said, Bernard is my brother, and we've been talking all along.
You've been eating kinky too.
Oh yeah, we still do. And I was shocked to hear that he was disqualified. But you see, one other agenda is that once PNC is on the ballot, PNC has a seat at IPAC. And one person they wouldn't want to have at IPAC is my good friend and brother, Bernard Mona.
Precisely. I agree.
You get it? So if he's not on the ballot, he's not at IPAC. And we need to look at some of these things properly, because you see, we have a country to save, and the EC has an important role to play. This is an institution that only comes to the fore once in a year. That is when they have a major, once in every 4 years.
4 years, yeah.
That's when they have a major assignment to play. They can't make mistakes. Why do they keep making mistakes? Because for 4 years, you have all the opportunity to do whatever you need to do. Put your house in order. Get Ghanaians onto a voter roll. Take out those who are not supposed to be on the voter roll. Let's have a clean register. Organize election. People go to vote. And my experience in Sweden, they have what they call regret voting. People vote earlier when they want to travel and all of that. And when they feel that they don't want to, for some reason they want to change their vote before, they come back. Even that, they don't have challenges. You can come back and say, well, I've regretted my vote, so I'm taking it out and replacing it. Even that, they don't have challenges.
Hey, then to have hit a Kofuado.
Bless, good morning. And belated happy birthday to you.
Right, thank you. Right, about birthdays to today is the birthday of a very good friend.
Bless, before you continue,
right.
They say you are still addressing me as communications secretary.
Oh no, I am not. In fact,
maybe your technicians.
Yes, but they asked me and I've told them that we are the general secretary of the People's National Convention. I can understand. I'm sure they've rectified that. Yes, I'm sure.
And for Sunday is my son's 19th birthday.
Oh, right.
And give me the opportunity to wish a happy belated birthday to the indefatigable Speaker of Parliament.
24th September, that was his birthday. Yeah. So belated happy birthday, Speaker of Parliament. And yesterday was mine. Today, all of you celebrating, including my good friend Vera Fiagbo. Happy birthday to you. May your dreams and aspirations see light. On that note, we draw curtains on what has been a very, very thrilling conversation here on the show. Good Morning Africa. Thank you so much for your time. Tomorrow is a Friday. Hopefully Alhaji Abi Husseini will be joining us on the newspaper segment of the show. Do have a pleasant day. Bye-bye.